So if you have a Synology NAS at home, here's a way to set up free web servers using multiple Docker containers. So you can mix match the different configuration to suit your particular need. So let's talk about how to set up a web server on the Synology NAS using Docker and nginx proxy manager. Here's the diagram to summarize what it looks like once it has been set up. So only the port 80 and 44.3 will be open to the public. Let's look at the diagram. I'm using the Node.js server to serve my web contents. So in front of my web server, it's nginx proxy manager used to redirect web traffic based on the setup. In this way, you can have multiple web servers hosted on the same Synology NAS. You can also integrate the free Let's Encrypt SS certificates very easily. I also have my router and firewall set up to forward web traffic to my proxy manager. To be able to access my web server from internet, I'm using the DDNS service on the Synology NAS to update my IP address to a dynamic DNS server. So user can use the domain name to access the web server. So both the Node.js server and the Synology proxy manager are set up using Docker. Now let's dive into the details. So the first thing you need to set up is your Node.js web servers. So I have put the link in the video and comment area to show you how to set up the Node.js using Docker on Synology NAS. So next, let's set up the nginx proxy manager using Docker. To set up nginx proxy manager, you need two separate Dockers. One of them is just a database to store data. So for the database, we're going to use MariaDB. So here's the Synology control panel. Let's go to the Docker first. So under the registry, let's search MariaDB. We're going to use this official Docker image. So if you open the registry, it will show you how to use the Docker image and show it's the official image. So download. So now let's download the nginx proxy manager. So the search is nginx proxy manager. So we're going to use the JC21. So that's the official Docker image. Now download it. So after you download both images, if you go to the image section, you can see you have the MariaDB and nginx proxy manager downloaded. Before launching the Docker container, let's create some folder first. So go to the file station. So under the Docker file, under the Docker folder, so I have the Node.js, that's for my web server. So now I need to create another folder called MariaDB. So under the MariaDB, it will store my nginx proxy manager data. So I need to create another folder called nginx-proxy. So under there, you need to create a folder called data and another folder called let's encrypt. It will be used to store the SSL certificate. So you need this folder to be created before launch the Docker container. So next, under the folder you just created, the nginx-proxy folder, you add a file called configure.json. So in that file, that's what you need. So the host, you put your IP address, the Synology IP address here. Name, user, password can be anything you want. The port I'm using 3306. After you're done, put the file under this Docker nginx-proxy folder. So here is how the folder structure looks like. You have a MariaDB folder, you have the nginx-proxy folder. Under there you have data folder and let's encrypt folder. So the configure.json file is under the nginx-proxy folder. So next, I'm going to create a Mac VLAN for nginx proxy manager. Use it to avoid port conflict with Synology NAS. So now open a SS terminal to the Synology manager. So if I run fconfig, so you can see there are quite a few net interface on my Synology. The one I'm looking for is the network interface connect to your home network. So after you find the network interface you want to use, you can run this command. This command will create a Mac VLAN interface with only one IP address. So you can use this IP address to access nginx proxy manager. So after the Mac VLAN is created, if you go to the Docker in the Synology NAS, then go to the network section. So you can see we created this network Mac VLAN with the command we just run. So next we will create a bridge for our web servers. So I'm creating a web bridge so I can put all my Docker inside the bridge. The reason for the bridge is you can refer the Docker, use the Docker name instead IP address. So here is what I have after I created the VLAN and the bridge. So next I'm going to set up the MariaDB. So if you remember, we downloaded the image. So now we go launch the container. So I will call it MariaDB 1. So if you click advanced settings, so enable the auto start. Next, under the volume, so click the add folder. You find the folder we created before, the MariaDB. Select, mount to the path. So next, under the port setting, we need to change the auto to 3306. So you can change the port, but you have to update the configuration file we created earlier. So change the port to a different number. So next, in the environment tab, you need to add 4 variables. So it will be used to access MariaDB. It will have the username, password, database name, and root password. So I will create it should match the JSON configuration file we created before. So here is the 4 variable you need to add. The value I will copy from the configuration file. So after you're done, click apply. The container will be created. So next we'll set up the nginx proxy manager container. So let's do launch, give the name, and click the advanced setting, enable auto start. So next, under volume, you need to add the folder we created before. So that's the folder we need to add. One is the data folder. To select, then mount the data folder to data. Add another folder we created. It's the SS certificate folder. So this folder will mount to let's encrypt. Next, you need to add the file. That's the configuration file we created. So it's under the configuration file. So this configuration file will mount to production.json. So under the network tab, you can add the network we added before. That's and remove the bridge, the default one. Just delete it. Next, go to port setting. You need to change the local port to the number you assign. So I will assign different. See this one and this one. So after you assign the port, you can click apply and create the container. So after the container is created, if you remember, we created the MAC VLAN. The IP address we use is so now we can use the port 81 to access the nginx login screen. So the default email address is admin and the password is change.me. So after you log in proxy manager, you can change your username and password to a different password. From here, you can set up a proxy host. So I have one set up here already. So this one when user access with the domain name, it will forward the traffic to the nginx one. So that's the Docker name I have for my web server. So if you go back to the container, so that's this container which hosts my web content. So to add a SSL certificate, you can go to the SSL certificates tab, click add SSL certificate. So the Let's Encrypt is the free one. Then you enter the domain name. Then you can test the server reachability. If everything works out, you can just add the certificate to your nginx proxy manager. So if you go to the SSL tab, I'm forcing the port 80 redirect to the port 443. So don't forget to put all the Docker container in the bridge, so you can access the Docker container username. So if you forget to do so, you can always use the manage interface, so to add everything in here or modify anything here. So this web bridge, I have all three container inside the web bridge, all three containers. So to get this work, so you also need to set up the port forwarding from your router and firewall to this nginx proxy manager. So each firewall and router has different setting. So if you use pfSense, that's how I forward the port 80 and 4043 to my nginx proxy manager. So the final missing piece is to update the dynamic DNS server. So the Synology comes with a DDNS service. So if you go to the control panel and external access, so you can see there is a DDNS. So this one you can set up to update your IP address to a different dynamic DNS server. So you can choose many different free DNS service. You will be able to just use the domain name to access your web server.